The Mutual Broadcasting System presents The Secrets of Scotland Yard with your host and narrator, Clive Brooks.
In an earlier time, just prior to and following the Second World War, the general public was fascinated by the subject of crime. Numerous magazines of true crime stories filled the newsstands. Radio also helped fill the need with fictional heroes such as Johnny Dollar and the Saint. Few true crime dramas other than Gangbusters or Dragnet sustained long-term success on radio. The Secrets of Scotland Yard was a successful crime drama series that initially aired internationally between 1949 and 1951, finally coming to an American radio network much later in 1957 over the Mutual Broadcasting System. Boasting well over 100 episodes, one of which apparently served as a prototype for another well-remembered radio drama series, The Black Museum. In both series, well-known actors were employed as host-narrator, Orson Welles in The Black Museum and Clive Brooke here. In fact, the shows were so similar that some of the same actual Scotland Yard cases were dramatized with totally different scripts and casts for both series. The Secrets of Scotland Yard was an independent production of the Towers of London Syndicate in England for worldwide distribution. Each week, an audience of anxious radio listeners tuned in to hear these true crime stories of the London Metropolitan Police unfold, as the detectives at the Yard investigated some of England's most famous criminals. Their trials have become legendary. The stories presented here include the theft of the British Crown Jewels by Colonel Thomas Blood, the story of a man who finds an armless and legless body wrapped in ribbons and lace, or the strange story of two close brothers who love one another enough to contemplate the murder of a brother's affluent yet unsightly and ignorant wife. Murders, forgery, and robberies all get a thorough review on the program. Each time Scotland Yard detectives are afoot to solve the crime mystery. The Secrets of Scotland Yard was initially hosted by Clive Brooke, probably for the first year or so.
How do you do? This is Clive Brooke.
To add to the air of authenticity, Brooke sometimes discusses matters with Percy Hoskins, a 1950s crime expert and reporter for the London Daily Express. Hoskins knew every nook and cranny in London's seedier districts and personally reported on many of the major crimes of the day. A student of crime, Hoskins was also one of the founders of the Saints and Sinners Club of London, an educational organization dedicated to true crime investigation, methods, and results. Brooke was eventually replaced by an actor portraying the character Superintendent X of Scotland Yard.
In a moment, Superintendent X of Scotland Yard.
How do you do? Today in this series of programs, I want to tell you something about the fence. To begin with, I'm not referring to your back garden, if you have a back garden, or in fact to any wooden structure. As you know, in the language of the underworld, a fence is a receiver of stolen goods.
The producer, Harry Alan Towers, was born in London on October 19, 1920, though some biographies claim he was an American. Today, Towers holds dual citizenship of Britain and Canada, but lives in the Bahamas and jets around the world for business appointments. He first set up a production company in 1946 after serving in the Second World War with the RAF. The British-based company Towers of London produced and syndicated, in addition to The Secrets of Scotland Yard, these other radio series popular with old-time radio fans today. The Black Museum, hosted by Orson Welles. The Adventures of Harry Lime, also known as The Third Man, again with Orson Welles. Theatre Royale, with Sir Laurence Olivier and Sir Ralph Richardson as hosts and narrators. The Scarlet Pimpernel, Horatio Hornblower, and the 1950 Sherlock Holmes series featuring Sir John Gielgud and Sir Ralph Richardson portraying Holmes and Watson. All of the Towers of London radio series named here remained in syndication within the United States up into the 1970s. It's really unfortunate that better-sounding copies of these shows have not been found.
The Secrets of Scotland Yard with your host and narrator, Clive Brooke. a moment, Superintendent X of Scotland Yard.
We like to see Made in USA on things we buy. It makes us think good thoughts, like supporting American industry and keeping Americans on the job. Well, you might be amazed at how often Made in USA turns up all over the world. In fact, last year alone, we exported more than $80 billion worth of manufactured goods. The U.S. Department of Commerce and the Advertising Council point out that many of the companies manufacturing for export are small, with fewer than 100 employees. If you're now selling your products here in the U.S., chances are there's a market for them overseas, too. For information on selling abroad, call the International Trade Specialist at your local Department of Commerce field office. Buy American is a good idea. Sell American is even better. A public service of this station.
How do you do? Today in this series of programs, I want to tell you something about the fence. To begin with, I'm not referring to your back garden, if you have a back garden, or in fact to any wooden structure. As you know, in the language of the underworld, a fence is a receiver of stolen goods. And while we're on the language of the underworld, it might be a good idea if we brush up our knowledge on this subject. Let me give you a few illustrations.
Seen Charlie lately?
Nah, he's up for a stretch.
I thought it was only a carpet.
What, with his record? Like he doesn't a pontoon.
Quite simple, really. Charlie, it appears, has been sentenced to 12 months imprisonment. For a stretch in the underworld does not mean just a term of imprisonment. It means 12 months. As for a carpet, that's just 3 months. And as for a pontoon...
Does that mean 21?
That's right, lady. Pontoon, 21 months. Simple, ain't it?
What do you think? Here's another example.
Watch out, Charlie. There's a busy.
What do you think I am? A dipper? Anyway, it isn't a flatty.
Nah, but he may be a narc.
I know what a narc is. It's an informer.
Right again, lady.
But what's a dipper?
Well, if you was a bloke, you'd know all right. It's a pickpocket, you see. He dips in just like that.
Hey, take your hand out of my pocket.
And what about a flatty?
He's a flatty.
You see, a detective.
And a busy?
The uniform branch.
Oh, I think it's fascinating.
Like Mrs. Beaton's recipe book, we should start the story by saying, first, find your fence.
If you think that the modern fence works from a kind of Fagin's den, you're very much mistaken. The art of staying in the business of being a fence is to look as inoffensive as possible. Oh, forgive the pun, I didn't mean it. One of the most successful men in the business had 3 different homes. And you could have gone through every one of them with a fine tooth comb, and you wouldn't have found the slightest trace of the way in which he made his living.
Then where will we find the fence?
Come along with me. I've got a date. It's in a London club. No, not one of those Soho joints. A respectable luncheon club just off Piccadilly Circus, it's true, but in a very good neighborhood. Most of the people who belong there are pretty prosperous, and some of them are very well known. It'd give them quite a surprise if they knew some of the business which is done in their club. Well, here we are, just up these steps. Give your name at the door, turn right, and we're in the bar. Good evening, Mabel.
Evening, sir.
Hello, Mr. Williams.
Good evening. What are you doing here tonight?
Small Scotch, miss.
Small scotch?
Oh, just passing the time of day. What are you doing here?
The same as you?
In a way, he's telling the truth. Williams is a fence. I'm telling it to you because Scotland Yard know it. The trouble of proving it is a lot harder. Mr. Williams can always be found at the club at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, no earlier, no later. He meets a lot of people, talks to them, and then goes home. Most of the people he meets are as innocent as you and I. But once in a while, he'll meet a visitor from overseas, a Frenchman or a Dutchman. You'll notice that when he talks to those people, Mr. Williams keeps well away from anybody else.
Well, why don't you pick him up? He's probably got the jewels on him.
Oh, no, miss. It's plain you don't know Mr. Williams. You see, all that he uses the club for is to talk over his little deals. I doubt if Mr. Williams has ever carried a bit of stolen property in his life. If he has, the Yard never knew about it, or they'd certainly have been onto him. The mugs who handle the property, they're another crowd altogether. Perhaps this afternoon Mr. Williams fixed a deal like this.
All right, then. It's a deal. You get the stuff tomorrow afternoon. 5:30, usual place, usual bay. Have your men there. Don't forget. No mistakes.
And where is the usual place? I only wish I knew. I only wish the Yard knew. Sometimes we have known, and when that does happen, Mr. Williams gets a shock. For instance, once it was outside a suburban post office. Just an ordinary quiet street, a man standing by the post box, a foreign-looking man in a blue shirt. He's only been there 2 minutes, and he's got his eye on the clock. He's already about to move off when a big car pulls up. The foreign-looking man moves over to the car, gives the package to the man in the car, who says,
All right, here you are.
He gives the foreign-looking bloke another packet. The jewelry is in one, the banknotes in the other. The deal is done. Except on that occasion, the Yard had a little inside information. You see, the man by the pillar box had a packet of banknotes, all right, but they were marked.
Why didn't you pick up the crooks in the car?
Oh, we could do that at any time. We were after Mr. Williams.
Did you get him?
Not that time.
Why? What happened to the banknotes?
They turned up the following day as an anonymous contribution to the Policeman's Benevolent Fund.
You mean?
Yes, a present from Mr. Williams.
He got away with it.
Yes, but one day he won't.
We return with the secrets of Scotland Yard in just a moment with your host, Clive Brooke.
Let's not forget that there's still a serious shortage of energy in America. As a public service, this station is presenting some winter tips for energy saving, provided by the Aluminum Association. First, increase your insulation. 6 inches thick for ceilings, 3 to 4 inches thick for walls. Install triple-track combination aluminum storm windows if you don't already have them. Seal off all cracks around windows and doors. Have your furnace checked. Keep the damper in your fireplace closed when not in use. Vacuum your radiators frequently. Dust and lint can waste precious heat. Lower your thermostat during the day. A drop of just 5 degrees can mean a saving of up to 15% on your fuel bill. And at night, set the thermostat to 60 to 65 degrees for a comfortable and economical night's sleep. Finally, a layer of aluminum foil between a radiator and a cold wall will reflect heat back into the room and help keep cold out.
That is the story of one fence, a successful one, but, as you heard, only successful so far. It's estimated that all the receivers of London handle between them stolen property worth more than £500,000 every year. Generally, it's disposed of by being broken from its settings, which are then melted down instantly and either reset or unset, disposed of to agents in various parts of the country as a first step towards getting it to the continent or to the United States. So slick are these receivers and so smooth and well laid their plans that jewellery stolen in London will be broken up when in other hands hundreds of miles from London within 24 hours of the property having been stolen. These receivers, then, are the people who really make crime pay, so far as the cash returns go, that is. In other ways, there is a penalty they can never escape. The constant nagging fear that one day the men of the Yard will surely catch up with them, or that some crook or other, more daring than his fellows, will make no bones about launching a blackmail plot against them.
Another kind of receiver is the, well, I almost said amateur, but that's not quite true. At the bottom of the scale, a receiver can be just an innocent mug. That's particularly true when goods are rationed or in short supply. The mug is standing in the bar at his local public house when a stranger comes over to him.
Evening, mate. Good evening. Seen the evening paper?
Yes, thank you.
I see there's going to be less whiskey than ever with all this export drive.
Yes, it's hard to get.
Unless you know the ropes.
I'm afraid you're right.
You got any for Christmas?
I expect I'll manage to get half a bottle from the wine store.
Half a bottle's not much good. What you need's a case.
Well, I don't know why I could get a case.
Yes, but suppose you could make a profit on it. I mean, sell it to your friends. They'd be grateful and you'd make money.
I suppose so, if I had a case of whiskey.
That's what I'm getting at.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like this. A friend of mine, he's in the whiskey business. He can always let me have some, but this year he's got to register me as an wholesaler, and that means I've got to get... rid of at least 10 cases. I've got to tell him on the phone tonight if it's okay. I fixed up to place the other 9 cases, and I've got this one case over. You look a nice sort of chap, and I thought,
Well, it depends on how much.
Now you're talking.
And he'll keep on talking all the way to the magistrate's court if he's unlucky. Always beware of friendships that grow so quickly as that one. And beware particularly of smart-looking gentlemen who offer you too good a bargain. The odds are the goods are stolen, hot goods. And our friend the Spiv wants to move them to other hands as quickly as possible before he gets burned.
That's right. You have been warned. Now let's go a little further up the scale and take a look at another variety of fence. Some people are particularly susceptible to being used as a receiver. Jewelers, for instance. Most jewelers are very honest in a very difficult business, but occasionally it's a different story, like this one. There'd been a robbery at a big country house, and a valuable quantity of jewelry had been taken. The yard was called in, but after spending several days investigating every possible angle and interrogating all the servants, the detectives were utterly without a clue on the suspect. The job had all the marks of having been the work of an expert jewel thief who'd managed to hide his tracks with unusual skill.
You know, there's something queer about this job. These marks on the windowsill, for instance. If it was done from outside, then it was the work of an experienced thief. And yet, if he was such an experienced thief, he would have been a little more skillful with his jemmy on the window.
What do you think?
I think this is an inside job.
Oh, we checked the staff over. Every man and woman of them. Nobody has a criminal record or seems the type.
Unless, of course, there's somebody behind all this. I'll tell you what. We'll sit back and keep an eye on every person on the staff. Sooner or later, one of them will make a slip. I'm afraid it's going to be a long job, but there's no help for it.
It was a long job, until one day a young underfootman in the household went up to London for his half-day. Purely as a routine, the yard had him followed. He did some ordinary shopping, and then he went to a small jeweller's. Innocent in itself, except for the fact that when he came out, he was counting some notes.
The little jeweler, of course, was a receiver who had thus adroitly planted the idea of a theft in the mind of the boy. Now the idea was bearing fruit. Fruit which the boy was bringing to him. A particularly mean fellow was this receiver. He knew he had a young mug to deal with and might have been expected to take some advantage of the fact. The advantage he did take was without precedent for sheer meanness, however. Looking the jewelry over contemptuously, he handed the boy £12 and told him he was lucky to get that. The boy, pocketing the £12, had no reason to think otherwise and went off back to the country house, perhaps marveling a little, nevertheless, at the cheap quality of his mistress's trinkets.
And that might have been the end of the story, if it hadn't been for Scotland Yard.
In a moment, we'll continue with the secrets of Scotland Yard.
A 6 meses para la exportación de Americana España.
We Americans buy a lot of things that were made abroad. Cars, cameras, television sets, maybe the radio you're listening to right now. But the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Advertising Council point out that many things made here in America find customers overseas. In fact, American companies exported $80 billion worth of manufactured goods last year. And many of the companies selling abroad are small, with fewer than 100 employees, perhaps like your company. The Department of Commerce says exporting is a lot easier than you think. They have international trade specialists who'll help you. Remember, if you're selling a product in the U.S., chances are you can sell it abroad. Call your local Department of Commerce field office and turn these people into customers. A public service of this station.
Following the information about the little jeweler, we kept an eye on the young underfootman at the house. Sure enough, the following day, he read in the paper a story that the jewellery he'd stolen was worth £5,000. Scotland Yard saw that that little item was well featured in the press. Journalists, like our friend Percy Hoskins, will always give the Yard a hand when they know it's going to help. This figure really frightened the little footman. It made him pretty mad, too. Following day, he managed to get time off and went straight back to London to see his friend, the jeweler.
What do you want?
Here, that £12 you gave me yesterday.
What about it?
But the newspapers say they're worth 5,000.
Maybe they are, but not to you.
Well, in that case, I ought to have more than £12 you gave me. How about it?
Not a penny more. You took what I offered and the deal's closed.
Well, sell them back to me for £12.
What do you take me for? A fool?
No, a crook.
You should talk.
Well, there you are, sir. I took the jewels. I admit it. Maybe I am a crook, but I'm not going to be swindled.
Are you prepared to make a statement to that effect?
Yes.
That's just what we've been waiting for.
And, as so often happens, the meanness of the fence betrayed him. So obsessed was he with the bargain he'd struck for £12 that he'd kept the jewels in a drawer in his shop. They were found there the following day by the men from Scotland Yard.
The dyed-in-the-wool crook will never let a receiver down, never give him away to the police. It would not pay to do that, for the crook who squealed on a receiver would never find another market for his loot. Similarly, receivers rarely let down the crooks with whom they do business, although there have been occasions when a crook, guilty of a careless slip, likely to have the effect of involving the fence in police inquiries, or perhaps rather more pressing in his demands for a bigger cut than the receiver is prepared to tolerate, has been quietly made the subject of a roundabout tip-off to the yard to ensure that he is caught and put safely out of the way before he can do any harm.
So far, we've not covered the most important aspect of the business. It's a cliche to say that money is the root of all evil, but the longer you work in my job, the more you realize how true it is. If every first offender knew the true finances of the business of being a crook, I don't think many of them would have started on the road to crime.
Here, wait a minute. If being a crook is such a bad business, what do you make of this? Look at this newspaper. Last year, London thieves managed to get away with property valued at £4,360,000. Of this, property worth only £770,000 was recovered. What happened to the rest if there's no money in being a crook?
But the catch is that the goods worth over £4 million probably were not sold for anything like that amount.
And as for the crook himself, what he got...
Was nobody's business.
Well, I wouldn't say nobody. I'd say it was the fence's business.
I'd still like to know how much a successful crook can make.
Well, let's take an illustration. If you'd been walking down one of the main London thoroughfares about a year ago, you might have passed a jeweller's shop. And grab. We've dealt with that kind of crime on this program, but in this particular case, there was a difference. A woman was involved, a man and a woman. The woman drove the car, the man broke the window and pinched the jewelry. Now they're making their getaway.
What have you got?
Look, what do you think of this?
Diamonds. That should be worth it.
Here, watch out! Good, you almost smashed us up there, Tom.
Oh, it was the sight of those sparklers.
Hope we're along now. Nobody following us. Where are we?
On Easy Street.
This street, eh? I wonder. Back at the jeweler's that afternoon, the representative of the insurance company is getting the necessary particulars.
Here has the inventory, Mr. Parks. As you will see, the stolen necklace was valued at £2,000.
And that's the only article that is missing.
We've checked over very carefully, and that is all they managed to get away with.
You have, of course, the full description for the police?
Oh, yes. They already have that at Scotland Yard. Those crooks, they didn't do so badly, did they? £2,000 in 2 minutes.
There is a difference between selling the goods and getting the price, you know.
You mean they won't get £2,000 for it?
I should be very much surprised if they did.
50 quid? What do you think I am?
You're an optimist if you expected more. I tell you, a necklace like this is quite an antique. Every pawnbroker and every jeweler in the country will have a description of it. This will have to go overseas, and that costs money.
Our money.
It all depends how you look at it. You aren't the only people in this business.
It seems the other people make the money.
I'll tell you what. I'll take a risk. I'll give you £100 cash for it. That's the best I can do. You better take it easy, straight.
Says you.
The DuPage community now has the opportunity to hear symphony concerts in its own backyard. The College of DuPage has just formed the New Philharmonic Orchestra. This orchestra, directed by Herb Bauer, who has held positions as music director of orchestras in Lake Forest, Quincy, and Peoria, Illinois, and the Erie Philharmonic, Pennsylvania. The New Philharmonic brings a large variety and high quality of orchestral music into the DuPage community. After their inaugural concert in November, the New Philharmonic drew high praise from many members of the Full House audience, as did their internationally acclaimed pianist soloist, Roberto Bravo. The New Philharmonic's next concert is February 21st and features one of the top saxophone soloists, Frederick Hemke. Hemke is the head of the Wind and Percussion Department at Northwestern University. The program includes compositions by Bear, Gounod, Eric Larson, and Beethoven, and is free to the public. Concert time is 8:15, and the performance will take place at the College of DuPage campus in Building M.
This is Sanford Marshall inviting you to return next week when we will again reveal the secrets of Scotland Yard. The Mutual Broadcasting System presents The Secrets of Scotland Yard with your host and narrator, Clive Brooke. Brought to you by the Mutual Broadcasting System in cooperation with the Kraft Foods Company, makers of Velveeta, the quality pasteurized processed cheese spread. X-Lax.
How do you do? What would make you commit a murder? What motive? Love? Hate? Jealousy? Greed? Murders by madmen don't count. They have no motive. But quite sane people have destroyed human life for reasons both extraordinary and unpredictable. How interesting and exciting are the vagaries of human nature. In proof of which, I'm going to recall to life a little scene of murder that happened at a certain place and to certain people. And I want you to guess the motive. The certain place was a public house, and there are certain people, two men and a woman.
Look, Bill, there's Mary Haldane. I haven't been seen in around the old haunts lately.
Certainly it is that I've never set my eyes on her at this time of day. She usually is sleeping during the light hours.
I'm thinking she looks none too happy. What do you think of her for, you know?
She'd be the right type. I don't think she'd be missed. Let's try her out.
Well now, Mary Miguel, you're out very early today, are you not?
Early, late. Makes no difference when you're only half alive.
Closing time, gentlemen.
Come to think of it, Mary, you're looking a bit under the weather now. You've not been drinking, have you?
That's just it. This is my first, and it looks like being my last. I'm sober as a saint and very, very sorry for it.
What in the name of heaven will it be then that's making you so unhappy?
Money, Bill. Money. Haven't any.
Well, now, I'm thinking a wee dram of the finest refreshment in the world. It would be doing you no harm at all, Mary, now. Come along with us to Bill's house. We were just going to have a drop ourselves now.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen, thank you. I'm just dying for a drink. You never know how much you love the stuff until you haven't got the money to buy it. Oh, thank you, gentlemen. You've probably saved my life. Any more, do you think? He given me so much already. Oh, well then, just one more. Oh, that's good. The taste seems to get better and better and better.
Come along now, Mary. Just one more now. This one will taste better than all the others put together.
Oh, no, really? Oh, well, I'm finding myself getting a bit dizzy, you know. I don't think I better have any more.
Really, Susan, now's the time. Get that pillow quick.
What was that? Is that true?
Drink, Mary. Just a little drink, you know. Just another little drop for the pretty shine in your lovely eyes now.
Oh, Bill. You and your compliments. You'll be the death of me.
Quick now. Over her mouth and nose.
I got a light. It won't be long now.
I think it's all over now. Can you hear her heart?
Just a second.
Yes, it's still beating. It's fainter. I can hardly hear it now. Yes, it's stopped.
And now, what was the motive for that murder? A murder deliberately planned and executed. What was the motive? The woman had no money. She'd done nothing to call for revenge. The murderers certainly neither loved nor hated her. What could they gain from her death? What did they want from her? Well, they wanted her dead body.
If you have high blood pressure, here are good reasons to stay on your medication.
There are people around who need you so. They shower you with love just to let you know. They want you to be there to see their dreams come true. But you won't be there if you don't take care of you. Do it for them, your son and your daughter. You know that you oughta do it for your loving wife. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for all the loved ones in your life.
Don't let high blood pressure lead to a stroke, kidney, or heart failure. Treat it and live. Stay on your daily medication. If not for yourself, for them.
Do it for all the loved ones in your life.
A public service of this station and the Advertising Council.
We open our story in November 1827 in Edinburgh, Scotland. There, in a filthy retreat called Tanner's Close, situated in the lowest quarter of the city, there existed a tramp's lodging house. The terms were not exorbitant, 3d per person per night. But the fact that the hovel only contained 8 beds did not mean that only 8 lodgers were accommodated. They usually slept 2 or 3 in a bed. The landlord was an Irishman, William Hare. In the house as a paying guest was another Irishman, William Burke, with his girlfriend, Helen MacDougall. As Burke and Hare were friendly, so did friendship spring up between Mrs. Hare and Miss MacDougall. Now for the story. On this particular evening, Hare came into Burke's room in an obviously angry mood.
Hello there.
Evening to you here. And what is it I can be doing for you?
Oh, I was just dropping in for a spot of talk and perhaps a spot of spirit.
Yes. I was just having a dram myself. There's nothing to touch it.
That's true enough. One could buy a lot of whiskey with £4 now, couldn't one?
And why £4? Now then, come on with you. What is it you'll be having on your mind?
Well, it's this way, Burke. That old man Donald.
The army pensioner upstairs, who's always having them nightmares.
He'll be having no more nightmares. He's dead.
Is he, by the saint? And when?
Yesterday morning.
Well now. But what's there in an old man dying off to worry you? He had to die sometime. You didn't have a hand in it yourself now, did you?
Lord, no. He died of too much drinking and old age. I wanted him to stay alive, the old codger. He owed me money.
That'll be the £4 you mentioned.
Yes, and he's left nothing. Not a farthing.
That's bad. Bad indeed now. I'm terribly sorry here.
Burke, I've been thinking now. There might be a way of, so to speak, retrieving the money.
A relation?
No, he had none to my knowledge. Would you be knowing of a Dr. Monroe? He's a lecturer at the medical school.
Ah, I've heard his name somewhere now.
He lectures to the students on anatomy or some such name, and he shows them what he's driving at in his talk by pointing it out on a body, a dead body. He cuts up the body while he's talking to them.
Ah, go on here now. But what's this got to do with old Donald upstairs?
Dr. Monroe is short of bodies right now. He pays well for them, and no questions asked. He usually gets them from the students who rob the graves of the dead up at the church.
But you'll be wanting to sell him old Donald without having to put the corpse in the grave at all.
Right. Will you be helping me? I need help in this.
But what'll I be getting out of it?
Anything over the £4 that Donald owes me.
I'm with you then. Where's the body?
In the coffin in the yard. We'll stuff the box with a bag of wood, then nail the lid back on. No one will know it isn't a corpse inside when they come to bury it.
Let's get on with it then.
The idea was a variation on the old one of body snatching. The robbing of graves had been going on since early in the previous century. The dissecting tables of the medical schools were kept supplied mainly by bands of such thieves who would rob the nearby churchyards at a good profit. If you've ever been to Edinburgh, you will perhaps have noticed the cage-like effect of certain cemeteries, the graves being fenced in with iron bars. These are relics of an age when the sleep and peace of the dead were liable to be disturbed by the resurrectionists, as they were called. Sometimes the robbers would keep a watch over the aged and ailing members of the community, waiting for death to do its work. And then, almost before the body was stiff in its grave, they would dig it up and take it to the nearest market, in other words, the nearest medical school. It was illegal, of course, and the strict Scots religion made the crime very unpopular. But all this tended to make the price of bodies higher, and though the risks were great, so were the profits.
And this must be the door, number 10. That's right. Well, there's someone about anyway. Should we bargain, do you think?
Better not the first time. Let's hear what they have to offer. If he pays enough to cover Donald's debts to you and a bit more for me, I'll be content.
I wish he'd hurry up. I don't like carrying a corpse all over Edinburgh with me.
Can I help you, gentlemen?
We've come to see Dr. Knox.
Oh, I'm afraid he's busy at the moment. Can I help you? No, you can trust me.
Well, now, we have this...
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Come inside. Put it down on this table. That's right. Now then, take it out of the sack. Now, I'm afraid I can't offer you more than £7.
£7, is it?
Oh, all right then, £7.10, but no more. Now, here you are.
Yeah, thank you kindly, sir.
In a moment, we'll return to the secrets of Scotland Yard with your host, Clive Brooke.
These days, we're hearing a lot about productivity. And it's easy to see why. Because if our country can manage to make a little more out of our natural, financial, and human resources, we can slow down inflation, strengthen our economy, and make our jobs more secure. Sounds like a politician's dream, doesn't it? Well, it's more practical than you might think. Because what it takes is not muscle, but ideas. Ideas on how to do a job a little better. Ideas on how to make a piece of steel go a little further. Ideas on how to make crops grow a little better. And America is strong on ideas. So if you can use your ingenuity to do your job a little more productively, do it. And encourage others to do the same. America has always worked best when we all work together. This message from the National Center for Productivity and Quality of Working Life, brought to you by the Ad Council and this station.
Among the lodgers at the establishment of William Hare was a miller named Joseph.
How's that fellow Joseph getting on? He was coughing all last night. I couldn't sleep a wink on his account now.
Ah, he's worse. And his fever's alarming the other lodgers. Bad for business, you know. Some of them will be leaving unless he gets better soon.
Better, or worse, much worse.
Eh?
Let's go and see him. We might be able to put the poor devil out of his suffering. And Hare, I'm thinking Dr. Knox might be getting a wee bit anxious about bodies for his lectures. Are you with me?
Yes. Joseph would be better off dead anyway.
Has he any relations that might be worried about him?
Not that I know of. Here's the door.
Now, wait till I say the word, and then move quickly. We don't want him making an unholy row.
Hold on. Half shares when we sell the body.
Of course, man. What did you think?
Come in. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to you, Joseph. And how are you feeling tonight?
Oh, Mr. Burke, I haven't long for this world, I fear. Not long.
Now, what do you think here?
Not long, I fear.
Quick now. Put the pillow over his mouth. I'll hold his legs.
I've got you.
That's done. Now, this time we have...
In Burke's later confession to an Edinburgh evening paper, he winds up this particular episode with the words, "Sold to Dr. Knox for £10. About 9 months after the first murder, that of Joseph the Miller, an ex-soldier and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Gray, were staying at the lodging house. One evening there was a party given by Burke in his room to which all the lodgers were invited. Burke gave the party in honor of a little old woman he had found in a wine shop. Mr. and Mrs. Gray were among the guests.
Would you believe it now? There I am having my morning dram of whiskey in old Reimer's shop. When what would I be hearing? What a gentle voice, speaking in accents of my own beloved Ireland. Asking for alms she was. Now, Mrs. Gray, would I be the true son of the fairest land in all the world if I were not asking you to take a little refreshment at my expense? And as sure as my name's William Burke, what would you think I would be finding her name was?
I'm sure I don't know, Mr. Burke. I'm sure I don't know.
Why, Doherty. The same as my darling mother's name, God rest her soul. And would it be right now, I'm asking you, Mrs. Gray, if I were not to be throwing a bit of a party tonight for the sake of a dear relation of mine?
Very kind of you, Mr. Burke. But you know, thinking your dear relation is a wee bit too much of the whiskey. She's old now and none too steady in her feet.
Oh, Billy here will be taking care of her. He's dancing with her now. Oh, look now, if he hasn't trampled on her feet.
Oh, she doesn't look too badly hurt to me.
No, probably just a sprain. Now, are you all right, my dear Maggie?
Oh, Mr. Burke, I'm not hurt bad, but I'm afraid there'll be no more dancing for me tonight.
Nor any other night. The party continued drunken and noisy into the small hours. Mr. and Mrs. Gray left comparatively early, but returned on Hare's invitation to breakfast the next morning.
Tell me, Mr. Burke, what became of the old lady you had with you last night?
Doherty, do you mean? The old hag. Did you not hear the row in here all night? She got so drunk she thought she was 50 years younger and started getting much too friendly with me. We kicked the silly old baggage out of the house.
Well, that's so, Burke.
That's the truth I'm telling you, Mrs. Gray. I put up with the old girl as long as I could, but we had to get rid of her in the end. Oh, what a row she made. but she's quiet enough now, Mrs. Gray. Keep away from that bed, if you please, now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Burke. I wanted to get to the potatoes. They're under here, aren't they?
What in the name of mercy are you doing near the bed with the lighted pipe in your mouth now? Come away, do you hear?
What's my pipe got to do with it?
Wait, woman, you might set the straw on fire with it, and then there'd be a nice mess now. I'll get the potatoes myself, and I'll warn everybody to keep away from this part of the room.
This peculiar conduct naturally aroused the curiosity of the Grays, but it was not until nearly evening that Burke left the house, by which time Mrs. Gray must have smoked several more pipes. As soon as Burke left, she went straight to the bed, lifted the cover, and there she discovered the dead body of Mrs. Doherty. It is due to the unswerving honesty of Mrs. Gray and her husband that the criminals were brought to justice. Both Burke and his mistress tried to bribe them to keep quiet about their discovery. They were poor people, and the offer of £10 a week must have been very tempting, but they went to the police. And gradually the whole horrible story came out, though it was not until much later, when Burke made his confession, that the public learned the full extent of the crimes that had been committed in Tanner's Close. For the moment, only the murder of Mrs. Doherty was before them. But was it murder? The first job of the public prosecutor was to prove this, to establish what in Scots law is called the corpus delicti. But owing to the subtlety of the murderer's methods, the surgeon of the Edinburgh City Police was unable to say whether the old woman has really died from violence. The evidence against all four concerned was inadequate, and at one time it looked as though it would be a case of having no trial. But finally, as all four still denied all accusations against them, it was decided that Hare should be asked to turn King's evidence. Hare readily accepted the offer. He came into the court with a ghastly smile.
William Hare, we observe that you are at present a prisoner in the toll booth of Edinburgh. And from what we know, the court understands that you must have had some concern in the transaction now under investigation. It is therefore my duty to inform you that whatever share you might have had in that transaction, if you now speak the truth, you can never afterwards be questioned in the court of justice.
These words must have reassured him greatly. He implicated himself and his partner Burke with every word he spoke, knowing all the time that only Burke would pay the penalty. The case started at 10 a.m. on December the 24th, 1828, and the court sat without a break until 9:30 the next morning, Christmas Day, when the verdict was returned. Burke's mistress, MacDougall, was acquitted, as the charge against her was not proven, which is a Scots compromise between guilt and innocence. Hare's wife went free, as his evidence could not concern her. Wife cannot bear witness against husband. That William Hare himself went free seems unjust to us now, but at the time it was a case of one or neither, and the course taken was the only possible one within the law. I would like you all to hear the sentence passed on Burke. It was the normal one for murderers in Scotland, but it has, I think, a special significance when applied to a man who made his living by the sale of corpses to the medical school.
And upon that day, to be taken forth from the said toll booth to the common place of execution in the lawn market of Edinburgh, and then and there to be hanged by the neck by the hands of the common executioner upon a gibbet until he be dead, and his body thereafter to be delivered to Dr. Alexander Monroe, Professor of Anatomy in the University of Edinburgh, to be by him publicly dissected and anatomized. And may God Almighty have mercy on your soul.
And so it was that William Burke ended up in the same way as the numerous men and women that he and his fiendish partner had smothered to death, on a lecturer's dissecting table.
No face is lovelier than the face that emerges from a pink ice. Hot and cold money. The money it costs all of us to keep our homes cool in summer and warm in winter. To save some money and help conserve our precious energy resources, here's some good advice. The amount of energy necessary to heat or cool your home is greatly affected by your insulation. Good insulation keeps furnace heat inside in winter and the sun outside in summer. If it's faced with foil, it'll serve as a barrier against moisture vapor. Aluminum-faced insulation aids in retarding heat flow, and proper insulation can make large savings in money and energy. A properly insulated roof can save 90% of heat loss compared to an uninsulated roof. Good insulation can save a considerable amount of heat loss through walls and floors, not to mention the benefits of insulated aluminum siding. In hot weather or cold, a properly insulated house will be comfortable and economical. The Mutual Broadcasting System has presented The Secrets of Scotland Yard with your host and narrator, Clive Brooke. In cooperation with the Kraft Foods Company, makers of... This is Sanford Marshall inviting you to return next week when we will again reveal the secrets of Scotland Yard.
Have you ever thought of murdering somebody? I have. I suppose most of us have. But there's something that's different between thinking about it and carrying it out. At least I hope so. Something that's different, but not something you can see or recognize or that may give you warning. For example, a murderer may have stood next to you in the lift this morning. He might be the man who asked you for a light for his cigarette, or sat next to you in the cinema, or shared the same table at a restaurant, or... Anyway, there was nothing to show that he was a murderer. That is where truth differs from fiction. I've acted in a lot of films about murder, read many crime stories. There's always something strange about the man who commits the crime. Something remote, something sinister. As a background, that's sinister, too. An implication of evil is always present. But in real life, the most hideous crimes cast no such shadows before them. The background could be quite cheerful and ordinary, the criminal a simple, prosaic sort of fellow. Now, let us take such a scene and such an ordinary sort of chap going into a post office one sunny morning in the little English town of Boston. And listen.
Telegram, please, miss.
Thank you. Morning Post. Come immediately. 4:30 train, Waterloo, Bournemouth Central. Something will meet. I'm afraid I can't read this bit here.
Where? Let me see.
Here.
That's car. Car will meet.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Car will meet train. Extent no object urgent.
You've got it. How much will that be?
2 shillings, please.
Just a simple little act. Sending a telegram. The girl behind the counter thought nothing further about the man who sent it. Why should she? Would you? No reason why you should. Unless you happen to know, as I do, that he's a murderer. Days later, the body of a woman was found in a field about 3 miles outside Bournemouth, a seaside resort on the south coast of England. That is where our casebook history begins. The police are inspecting the body.
Your clothes, Fred, are still damp. Stopped raining early last night, didn't it? That's right. About 8:30. Must have happened before that, then. Nasty piece of work. Yeah, poor woman. Somebody made a thorough job of her, all right. Those car tracks show how she was brought here. The car must have pulled up just down the road there. I'd recognize those tire marks anywhere, Sid. Well, we better take measurements of the track and wheelbase, Fred. Not much more we can do till the doctor comes. We'll be along any minute now.
It didn't take the police long to discover the identity of the murdered woman. She was Irene Wilkins of Streatham, London. And within a few hours, her widowed mother was then on her way to Bournemouth to see Superintendent Garrett in charge of the case.
Irene had been advertising in the paper for a position as lady cook. They answered by telegram, asking her to come down immediately.
Where was the telegram from, Mrs. Wilkins? Do you remember? This may be very important.
Oh, I remember where it came from, all right. It was from Boscombe.
Splendid.
I hope you'll get the brute that killed my poor girl.
We'll get him, all right. You must be brave and help us all you can.
Oh, I'm sorry I gave way like that. But it does seem such a shame.
I wonder if you can remember the date on the telegram.
Well, it came Monday morning. Now, that would be
December the 22nd. This gives us something to work on. Sergeant Harris? Yes, sir? Come here a minute. I want you to go to the post office at Boscombe. Yes, sir. Tell them I want to see the original telegram form that a customer handed in on the 22nd to be sent to this address. Wilkins, Pelmere Road, Streatham. Very good, sir.
Boscombe. We've heard that name before, haven't we? And Boscombe is only a couple of miles from Bournemouth. So it didn't take Detective Sergeant Ellis long to get there, nor did it take long for one of the post office clerks to search through the files and find the original copy of the telegram sent to Irene Wilkins. Sergeant Ellis made a quick trip back to Superintendent Garrett's office at Bournemouth.
Start work, everyone. Now, let's see what we can get from this telegram. Morning Post. That must be the newspaper Miss Wilkins advertised in. Come immediately, 4:30 train, Waterloo, Bournemouth Central. Something will meet. Oh, car. That's what it is. Car will meet train, expense no object, urgent. Signed Carver,
Woolbeach House.
No, I checked up the name and address, sir, and they're both fictitious.
Well, that was to be expected. I'd say this was probably written by a man. You notice anything peculiar about the spelling?
I did, sir. It's almost as bad as the handwriting. That's pretty awful.
Right. Here's immediately spelled with an I instead of an E. No E in Bournemouth. And expense with a C instead of an S. This might give us something to work on.
Well, a car did meet Irene Wilkins, sir. We've got the measurements. We know the make of tires it was fitted with.
Yes, we may be able to do something with that in time. But I think our best line for the present is through this telegram.
The handwriting and spelling are distinctive, sir.
Put out a general inquiry, see if any more telegrams with peculiar spelling have been sent off lately. If so, get me the originals. Try the Boston area first and work out from there.
Very good, sir.
When Scotland Yard takes over an investigation, no clue is too small to be considered. Postal headquarters in London were asked to make inquiries throughout all their offices in the British Isles. It took a bit of time for Ellis to check all the branch post offices in the Bournemouth district, and it was some days later before he reported back to the superintendent, weary but triumphant.
Come in. Ah, it's you, Ellis. Any results?
Yes, sir. Not bad at all. 2 telegrams received during the last month with similar areas of spelling.
Good.
This is the first one, sir.
Addressed at Dickinson.
Yes, sir. The handwriting matches.
Odd name, this. And sent from Hampstead this time. Advertisement. Immediate interview desired. Come Waterloo, Bournemouth. Remain night if desire. Expenses given. Car will meet train. Signed Mrs. Cooper. Same spelling mistakes, aren't there? Immediate with an I instead of an E. Bournemouth without an E again. If with 2 F's and expenses spelled with a C. Definitely looks like the same chap.
I agree, sir.
What happened to Mrs. or Miss, whichever it is, Dittmanson?
No, the car didn't meet her, sir, so she went back to London.
Lucky for her, I should think. When was this sent?
December the 17th. Here's the other one, sir. Sent 2 days later on the 19th to a domestic employment agency.
Please send by 5:30 Waterloo to Boston train. Young, pleasant nurse companion for girl of 20. Car will meet train. There's another spelling mistake in this one. Pleasant with no A. In addition, all of them seem to have the same phrase. Car will meet. What do you think about it, Ellis?
Oh, well, sir, I think that both telegrams are decoys sent by the same person.
You contacted the employment agency, of course?
Yes, sir. They sent a letter to the address given, Butler, Boscombe Grange, asking for more particulars. They got no reply. So did nothing further in the matter.
Right. Well, it's back to the Boston post office for you, Ellis. You must be getting quite popular with the young ladies there.
No, sir.
What?
I'm not oversensitive, sir, but I get the feeling they think I'm a nuisance.
Well, now's your chance to change all that. Get talking to the clerks and see if you can find one who remembers accepting any of our illiterate friends' telegrams.
It's only a small post office, sir, just a man and a girl. The girl seems intelligent.
Fine. Off you go. And good hunting.
So Sergeant Ellis trotted back to the little post office at Boscombe, and his luck was in. He found Miss Watkins, the girl charged there alone. Ellis had not overstated the case. She was intelligent and not reluctant to talk. Quite the reverse.
I brought along a copy of a telegram, Miss Watson. One that was sent from this office. Would you mind looking at it and seeing if you remember it?
I'll try, but I don't promise I'll recognize it, mind you.
I understand that. Here it is. Take a look.
We have so many through here, you'd be surprised. They're talking of opening a bigger post office. We've really got more business than we can handle here.
Well, come to that, it might have been the other clerk that took this one.
Well, now, isn't that funny? After all the excuses I've been making, I do remember taking in this wire.
Splendid. Recollect anything about the sender?
Now, wait a minute. There was something. It was a man, I'm certain of that.
What did he look like?
I'm afraid I can't remember much about his looks, Sergeant Ellis, or what he was wearing. Still, there's something about that telegram nagging at the back of my mind.
Oh, it'll come, don't worry. And take your time. That's what I find helps most when I'm trying to remember something. try too hard. It just takes you that much longer.
But you say it's important.
Oh, it might be.
Let me read it again. Morning Post. Come immediately. 4:30 train, Waterloo, Bournemouth Central. Terrible writing, isn't it?
Yes.
Something will meet. Oh, car will meet. That's it. Of course, I've remembered.
I knew you would.
His voice. I'd remember it anywhere. Now, I'll tell you why. There was that one word I couldn't read. That word car. So I asked him what it was. And he said, car will meet. Now, I don't know why, but his voice gave me the creeps. It wasn't anything he said. I'm just sensitive to voices. I'd recognize that voice again anywhere.
It's going to be a bit of a job, finding a man by the sound of his voice. Still, you never know.
Well, I don't blame Ellis to you for thinking it was pretty much of a wild goose chase. But as he said, you'll never know. Meanwhile, other detectives were busy in the Bournemouth-Boscombe area, questioning both owners and chauffeurs of all cars whose general measurements might fit the tracks left at the scene of the crime. And here's where the name of Thomas Henry Alloway comes into our story. He was chauffeur to a Mr. Sutton, who owned a big grey saloon.
What were your movements, Mr. Alloway, during the late afternoon evening of December the 22nd last? That was Monday. Being the old man's late night, I went down to the station about 5:30, picked him up, drove him back, and took the car away at 6 o'clock. Do you have your own key for garage? No, there's only one. Mr. Sutton keeps tight hold of it. I locked up, turned the key in like I always do. I see. Then I went into Bournemouth and had a bit of supper at the Duke's Arms and went to the cinema. After that, came home and went to bed. What else was there to do? Pubs were all closed for then. You seem to remember it all very clearly, considering this happened over a month ago. What's the matter? Is it a crime to have a good memory? Have you got a good memory for spelling? What do you mean, spelling? Yes. What are you getting at? Well, did you ever have any difficulty with certain words? I don't know. Well, let's find out. Here, take this pencil and write in this notebook while I dictate. Now, first, I want to...
The experiment was a flop. Alloway's handwriting turned out to be entirely different from that on the telegram. And what's more, his spelling was quite correct when it came to writing out sentences that used the misspelled words. No, it didn't look as though he could be the man Scotland Yard was after. More and more, Superintendent Garrett was coming to realize he had a really tough case on his hands.
You know, Elliot, we shouldn't have let the postal authorities talk us into publishing those telegrams in the newspaper.
Well, sir, it did seem a good idea at the time. It made it a lot easier for them to circularize the details of what we were after.
Yes, but it's probably tipped off our murder to change his handwriting and brush up on his spelling. He's clever, whoever he is.
Of course, there haven't been any more telegrams.
No. No. Judging from this report, it doesn't look as if Alloway's our man. The car's about the right size, but the tires don't match.
He says he hasn't changed them since he put them on himself 4 months ago.
What about the owner of the car, Mr. Sutton?
Another chance, sir. Watertight alibi for the whole evening.
Ellis, my friend, I'm afraid for the moment we're stuck.
Yes, Scotland Yard was stuck. Just for a moment. Then coincidence took a hand, as it so often does in crime investigations. You'll hear about it in just a moment. Against any criminal getting away with it are enormous. Just think of all the details he has to take care of in planning out a crime. If just one goes wrong, he's likely to find himself in more than a spot of bother. He's got to think of himself and what he's doing first, last, and always. And he may overlook the fact that other people unimportant to him may notice things and remember them. Like Miss Watkins, the postal clerk, with her flair for remembering voices. One day, Thomas Alloway took a parcel into a Bournemouth post office. And it so happened that the clerk he handed it to was, yes, you're right, Miss Watkins, who had just been transferred there from the Boscombe branch.
I want to send this parcel. I'm in a hurry.
Let me have it. I'll wait. I know that voice.
Who is he? An old boyfriend?
Yes, dear. That'll be 8 halfpenny.
8.5? I've got the exact change, I think. Half a tick. Yes, yes. Here you are. And don't punt that parcel around. If you bother to look at it, you'll see it's marked fragile.
That's the man who sent that telegram. Quick, come to the window. Yes, he's getting into a car. A grey one. Can you see the license number? LK. Oh, I can't quite see it.
LK 7405.
LK 7405. Look out for the counter. I must get on to the police at once. What a bit of luck meeting him. And it was him, too. I'd know that voice anywhere.
Yes? Oh, hello, Miss Watkins. Huh? Yes, of course I remember you. He has? You got the number. Excellent. LK 7405. Good work. Thank you. Ellis, there's your friend Miss Watkins. She's recognized the man who sent the wire, and she's got the license number of his car. LK 7405. Did it ring a bell?
Just a sec, sir. I'll look through the chauffeur, could you? No. Yes. That's Mr. Sutton's car. The chauffeur was Thomas Henry Alloway.
That fellow again. We can't charge a man with murder because his voice resembles somebody who once sent a telegram.
There's not much support for his alibi, sir. Apart from the car being locked in the garage that night, he could have had a duplicate key made.
I'm afraid all we can do for the moment is to keep a very close watch on that gentleman. If he is our man, perhaps he'll slip up somewhere.
No such luck. More time went by and nothing happened. And then, believe it or not, another coincidence. Remember, this is a true case, and I'm telling you to exactly as it took place. Another little fact popped up that Alloway hadn't accounted for, because he'd been concentrating on himself at the time. Superintendent Garrett received a call from a man named Humphreys.
Now, Mr. Humphreys, tell us your story in your own words.
Well, Superintendent, I traveled down to Boston on December the 22nd in the same train as Miss Wilkins.
Excuse me, you didn't know Miss Wilkins?
No, but I recognized her photograph later in the paper. Although by that time, there was nothing much I could do about it.
But I don't follow.
Well, I'll explain. I'd come to Boston to spend the night with friends just before a business trip I was taking abroad. Next day, early, I took the train to Southampton and went on board the boat. I probably wouldn't have seen the papers at all, except that we were late in sailing, and my cabin steward brought on board an early afternoon edition.
I see. That explains a lot.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I didn't see the paper until after dinner that night, and we'd been at sea several hours.
Right, go on.
Well, of course, I was horrified to read at what had happened. She was a nice-looking girl. But there didn't seem to be anything I could do, so, well, I'm afraid I just left it at that.
Too bad. Still, I quite understand. Now, to come back to the day of the murder, it was there in your letter that you saw Miss Wilkins get into a car.
Yes. When we got off our train and were having our tickets collected, I was standing right behind her. That's when I noticed her hat.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her into this car, and I noticed it particularly because it had a peculiar luggage rack, a design I hadn't seen before. That may seem odd to you, but I must explain that I'm a motor car body designer by profession.
So naturally a detail like that would catch your eye.
That's it. But I didn't notice the license number of the car. And it wasn't until the day before yesterday that I came back on a visit to Boston. And by a strange coincidence, yesterday I spotted that same car again, recognized it at once.
By the luggage rack?
Yes. The whole thing came back to me in a flash. And this time I took the number as the car was past me. My friends told me the case hadn't yet been cleared up, and so I immediately wrote to you.
That's very interesting indeed, Mr. Humphreys. I think this evidence may be of great value to us. Now, just one more thing. You see this pile of ladies' hats on the table? Can you identify any one of them?
Yes. This one. The girl I saw get into the car was wearing it.
That's the hat found beside the murdered body of Irene Wilkins.
Definite proof, you say? No, not yet. But the case against Thomas Alloway was building up. What about the handwriting on the telegram? Superintendent Garrett had a bright idea. He needed something written by Alloway before the time of the murder. and was able to obtain the application form Alloway had filled out for his chauffeur's driving license. Would they match? They did. Perfectly. Proving beyond a doubt that Alloway had disguised his handwriting during the police test. Somehow, we'll never know how, Alloway learned of this new development, and knowing that he'd been closely watched for weeks, it was too much. He cracked. He forged his boss's signature to 6 checks and bolted. Well, that did it. Alloway was off like a fox with the hounds after it. The police immediately issued a warrant for his arrest and searched his flat. There they found a duplicate key to the garage. So he could have taken the car out again that fatal night without Mr. Sutton knowing. And Alloway? Where did he disappear to? How on earth do you find one person among 45 million? You and I couldn't do it on our own, but if we had a vast organization like Scotland Yard behind us, it would only be a matter of time before we found our man. And so Superintendent Garrett wasn't too surprised when he got a telephone call from the police at Reading. That's 90 miles away from Bournemouth.
Hello. Superintendent Garrett here.
We've got some good news for you, Superintendent. This is Reading Police Headquarters. We've picked up Thomas Alloway.
Oh, nice going. How'd you pick him up?
He came into a garage here, wanted a job as a mechanic. We'll bring him along to you.
Sounds simple, doesn't it? But I'm sure you can imagine the many hours of patient work and the hundreds of inquiries that finally resulted in Alloway's arrest. On him, the police found cards and letters in his own handwriting that matched up nicely with the telegrams. As Superintendent Garrett put it, a distinctive, ugly scrawl as nasty as the man himself.
Looks now as though we've got an open and shut case of it. And there's just one thing more. Get a dozen of those chauffeurs we interviewed and Mr. Alloway. I want to see if Miss Watkins can pick him out of a crowd by his voice alone. Now, Miss Watkins, you're not nervous, are you?
Just a little. Now, don't mind me. I'll do whatever I can to help.
Good. Well, what I want you to do is very simple. In the next room are several men. When we go in there, they'll have their backs turned to you, and you turn yours to them.
I can't see them then.
No, that's very important. They'll each in turn say certain words. If you recognize any of their voices, I want you to say so at once.
All right.
Ready?
Yes.
Now then, just stand here, facing the wall. All right, Ellis. Carry on when you're ready.
Very good, sir. Will you read the words written on this card? Car will meet.
Second man?
Car will meet.
Third man?
Car will meet.
That's the man.
Thank you, Miss Watkins. That is Thomas Alloway.
And without any doubt, Thomas Alloway was a clever man in several ways. But like every other human being, he unfortunately had his weaknesses. If you set out to plan a crime, and I hope you don't do it very often, you should always make allowances for the unexpected. Alloway didn't. His complete disregard for anyone but himself brought about his downfall. When brought to trial, Alloway put up a bold defense in spite of the overwhelming weight of evidence produced by Scotland Yard. The vital and decisive moment came while Alloway was in the witness box being questioned by the counsel for the prosecution.
Now, Mr. Alloway, there are certain words I want you to spell, and I want you to be very careful.
All right, go ahead.
The first word is Bournemouth. Will you spell that, please?
Bournemouth.
Thank you. And now, expense. The word expense.
EXPENSE.
Right. Next, immediate.
IMMEDIATE.
Now, would you spell pleasant?
PLESENT.
PLESENT, like you spell present.
Yes.
His memory had failed him. He'd forgotten to check over the spelling in the telegram to the employment agency asking for a pleasant young nurse. His error, coming when it did, was enough to tip the scales of justice against him. Thomas Henley Alloway was convicted and hanged. We've called this case Accurate Spelling is Essential. Of course, you say, if Alloway hadn't been a poor speller, he might have got away with murder. But there are more ifs in the story than that one. If Humphreys hadn't been a motor car body designer, he probably never would have noticed that luggage rack on Alloway's car and so wouldn't have remembered it. If he hadn't left on his business trip when he did, his evidence would have been available immediately after the murder. If the police hadn't been forced to concentrate on the only other evidence they had, the telegram sent by Alloway to his victim, they might never have discovered Miss Watkins, the postal clerk. If she hadn't had a special talent for remembering voices, she might never have noticed Alloway. I think you'll agree with me that the long arm of coincidence played a large part in this case. For if none of these things had happened, as and when they did, the murderer of Irene Wilkins might never have been brought to justice. By the way, are you good at spelling? I'm not bad, but after listening to this case, I'm sure you'll agree that it's always wise to keep a dictionary handy. In the next case I shall be telling you about, coincidence plays no part at all. But that's for next time. Now, until we meet again, I must close this casebook of the secrets of Scotland Yard.
How do you do? This is Ty Brooke. Of all murderers, perhaps the poisoner is the cleverest and the most difficult to catch. There is something peculiarly horrible about a man or woman who uses poison. Theirs is a premeditated crime, and once caught, they have little hope of reprieve. The story I'm going to tell you today concerns a man respected and liked in the community in which he lived. An officer, he served in the First World War, a clerk to the local justices of the peace, and apparently in every respect a man of integrity and a worthy citizen. November 1921. A confidential letter has been received at the Home Office from Dr. Tom Hinks, who practices in the little market town of Hay on the border of Wales.
I am only writing this letter after the most severe conflict in my own mind. To cast suspicion on a fellow human is, I fear, a terrible thing to do, particularly when he is a well-liked friend. And yet I must do my duty, and I have no alternative. In February of this year, Mrs. Catherine Mary Armstrong, who had been an invalid for some time, died. The patient was under my care, and I had given her my constant attendance. Mrs. Armstrong had suffered from delusions and actually been certified as insane. It was about a month after her return from the asylum when she died. Throughout her illness, her husband, Major Herbert Rouse Armstrong, solicitor and clerk to the local justices, had been most attentive. I certified that the death of Mrs. Armstrong was from natural causes. I had no reason to think otherwise. And then, some 3 weeks ago, I had a visit from Mr. Norman Martin, who is also a solicitor and practices in this same town. When he came to me, he was in a most agitated state.
Dr. Hinks, it's no use. I've got to tell you. Major Armstrong is trying to poison me.
What? Don't be a silly man.
I tell you that's the truth. I couldn't believe it myself at first.
But why? Why?
Well, for some time he's been holding the sum of £500. It was an advance on a property deal. I've been acting for the purchasers, and I can't get either the money out of Armstrong or get him to complete the deal. There's nothing personal about it. I thought I was a friend of Armstrong's, but this matter is getting rather serious.
But not for him to poison you. It's ridiculous.
Listen, I haven't finished. A few weeks ago, a parcel was delivered to our house. It contained a box of chocolates. There was no note inside as to who it came from, and I put the chocolates away until the following week. Some friends came for dinner. A woman who ate one of the chocolates was taken violently ill.
Yes? Is that all?
It certainly isn't. Armstrong has always been asking me to go and have tea with him. In the end, I agreed. It was last week I went. He offered me a scone. He picked one particular scone out to give to me. Then when I got home, I was seized with agonizing pains, just the same way as the guest of mine who had eaten the poisoned chocolates. I'd been poisoned. I'm sure of it. He keeps asking me to go back there for tea again. He's trying to murder me.
That was the story told in Dr. Hinks's letter to the Home Office. The doctor had taken an analysis following Martin's illness, and it pointed to arsenical poisoning. Dr. Hinks had come to the conclusion that the symptoms which had puzzled him in the case of Mrs. Armstrong's fatal illness must have been caused by a similar but much more deadly dose of arsenic. The matter was passed over to Scotland Yard, and Chief Inspector Crutchett, together with Detective Sergeant Sharp, were instructed to take up the inquiry.
One thing's certain, Sharp. If Major Armstrong gets wind that we're after him, he'll take every precaution.
He must be a cool customer, sir.
Yes, and we don't even know that there's any truth in Dr. Hinks' suspicions. I've decided we'll go down to Hereford and make that our base. We'll pose as a couple of tourists on a walking tour. We won't go near the town of Hay except at night, and then we'll have to have a talk with Dr. Hinks and Mr. Martin and see how much basis there is in their suspicions.
Inspector Crutchett, I got your message. I did as you asked. I had Mr. Martin come round here to meet you.
Thank you, Dr. Hinks. This is Detective Sergeant Sharp.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hinks.
And this is Mr. Martin.
How do you do, Inspector Crutchett?
Well, Mr. Martin, before we begin to ask you a few questions, I'd be grateful, Dr. Hinks, if you could tell me a little more about Major Armstrong. How long has he lived in the district?
Over 25 years. Married in 1907, you know, and bought Mayfield.
That's one of the largest houses in the district.
Any family?
Oh, yes, 3 children.
And he's popular in the district?
Extremely so. He's a very well-educated man, Master of Arts, Cambridge, and, as I expect you know, he's the clerk to the local justices.
Yes. Dr. Hinks mentioned that in his letter. What sort of fellow is he to look at?
Quite small. I shouldn't say he weighs more than 7 stone. But he did very well during the war.
You mean he saw active service?
Well, no, I meant rather that he did well from a promotion point of view.
Oh.
Yes, he was in the Territorial Army before the war, and to tell you the truth, I rather think he enjoyed his service life. He was always talking about it anyway. He wears his army top boots and riding breeches on every possible occasion on his British war. Yes, I think Major Armstrong liked the army.
Yes, it must have been a change.
Why? Isn't he very happy at home?
Oh, I don't like saying it, but I think he's been a lot happier since the death of Mrs. Armstrong. You see, she was a woman of strong and peculiar character. She was religious and, I must say, a little eccentric.
Oh, that's putting it mildly. She used to lead Armstrong an awful life. She wouldn't have any liquor in the house, And if he wanted to have a smoke, he had to go out into the garden.
Funny thing was that meeting Armstrong away from his home, you'd have thought he was the master. But you only had to pay a visit to Mayfield to know that it was Mrs. Armstrong who cracked the whip.
But she was an invalid.
Oh, yes, yes. As I told you, she had been certified as insane, though at times she was quite normal. When she came back from the asylum, Major Armstrong engaged 2 nurses and looked after her in every possible way.
When she died, was he very upset?
Yes, apparently so. He's been very devoted to her memory. Every Sunday since the funeral, he's visited his wife's grave, and he reads the lessons in the morning service in the village church.
Ah. Now, Mr. Martin, I'd like to hear your story. This box of chocolates, did you keep any of them?
Yes, I brought them along with me. Here you are.
I will send these back for analysis. Take care of them, Sharp.
Very good, sir.
Of course, you've no proof that these came from Major Armstrong.
No, but then there was the other occasion when I went to tea.
What did you have to eat or drink?
Just a cup of tea.
Who poured it out?
The Major Armstrong. And he offered me a scone.
Did you pick it out yourself?
No. He selected it for me off the cake stand and gave it to me with the remark, "Excuse fingers." When I reached home, I was in absolute agony. The rest you know.
Have you seen Major Armstrong since?
Yes. I met him the other day in the High Street. He called out to me.
Norman! Norman, I say, Norman!
Oh, hello, Armstrong.
Oh, haven't seen you for days. How are you keeping?
I'm all right.
Funny. I heard you weren't very well. Must have eaten something, eh?
Yes. I had rather a bad attack. It was after I'd had tea with you.
Oh, too bad, too bad. You know, you don't look very well.
Oh.
It may seem rather a strange thing to say, but I can't help feeling that you look as though you'll have another attack quite soon.
Oh.
Too bad, too bad. You must take care of yourself. Good morning, my boy. Bye-bye.
Oh, good morning.
And he said that to you?
Yes. And since then, he's rung me up once or twice. He wants me to come and have tea again. What am I going to do?
My advice to you, Mr. Martin, is to do nothing.
For several days, Inspector Cutchett continued his inquiries, only visiting Hay at night time and taking the greatest care that no word of his presence should reach Major Armstrong. And then, one morning, he suddenly appeared at Armstrong's office. The Major was seated at his desk. Cutchett knocked at the door and walked into the room.
Major Armstrong?
Yes? Who are you?
Chief Inspector Cutchett of Scotland Yard. I have here, Major Armstrong, a warrant for your arrest on the charge of the attempted murder of Mr. Norman Martin.
But this is ridiculous. You walk into my office unannounced.
I'm very sorry, Major Armstrong, but we've our reasons. I must ask you to come along with me to the police station.
Oh, ridiculous.
Nevertheless, you'll have to come with us. I have to ask you to hand over to me, Major Armstrong, any papers you have in your pockets or anything of that kind.
Oh, very well.
If you'll just place them on the desk in front of you, Sharp here will make them up into a parcel, and we can bring them along to the station with us.
Yes, sir.
Are these your personal files over here, Major Armstrong?
No, they're to do with my business.
But some of them are marked personal.
All right, bring them along if you want to. I don't mind what you do.
1 minute, Major Armstrong. Would you mind putting down that envelope that you've just removed from the desk?
What envelope?
You put it in your left-hand pocket just now.
Very well. Here it is.
The package contained a white powder, 3 3/4 grains of arsenic, more than enough for a fatal dose.
after Armstrong's arrest, the body of Mrs. Armstrong was examined, and Dr. Spilsbury, the Home Office pathologist, came down from London to make the post-mortem examination. The coffin was carried into the parlour of a little cottage opposite the churchyard, and there on a plain wooden table, Dr. Spilsbury conducted his examination. His report was passed to the county analyst for further action.
I have analysed the samples given to me by Dr. Spilsbury, and I find that they contained over 3 1/4 grains of arsenic. This is the greatest amount of this particular poison that I have ever found in any human body.
Armstrong was charged with poisoning his wife and was brought up in the police court where he had sat for years as clerk to the justices. The situation was without parallel in the records of English justice. A lawyer charged with murder in the court where he had assisted to uphold the law. Armstrong's place as clerk of the court was taken by a very elderly colleague, an octogenarian from a neighbouring village. The trial opened before Mr. Justice Darling at the Shire Hall, Hereford, on April the 3rd, 1922. Snow was falling heavily when the prisoner was brought up from the cells. Armstrong was a curious little figure in the oversized dock. He was dwarfed by the burly prison warders who towered on each side of him, yet there was something in his bearing which saved him from appearing insignificant. Armstrong had reserved his defense at the police court, but what that defense would be, no one, apart from his legal advisers, could imagine. The Crown had accumulated a massive weight of evidence against him. And so, confident and cheerful, the gallant major put forward his defense. It was that Mrs. Armstrong had committed suicide. Armstrong was in a position to prove that his wife had actually threatened to destroy herself. There was also the fact that she'd been certified insane. How could it be said in the circumstances that suicide was out of the question? However, Dr. Spilsbury, the pathologist, had an answer to this.
The evidence of the onset of the symptoms suggests that a dose of arsenic had been administered to the deceased some 9 days before she died. However, I am confident from my examination that the action of the poison had been going on for days before death. Mrs. Armstrong might have taken 1 dose of arsenic to commit suicide, but I should consider it most improbable that she would have given herself repeated doses of the poison after experiencing its agonizing effect.
Armstrong gave evidence in his own defense. His explanation of how he happened to have a packet containing a fatal dose of arsenic in his pocket was more ingenious than convincing.
I had set aside an ounce of white arsenic before an experiment in killing dandelions. I had made up the arsenic into 20 little packets, which I had put into the pocket of my gardening coat. Then I went into the garden, drilled a hole in the ground wherever a dandelion was growing, and emptied the contents of one of the packets of arsenic into the hole. I was arrested on a Saturday morning when I was wearing the gardening jacket at the office. I thought I'd used all the 20 packets of arsenic to kill the dandelions, but I'm afraid I must have overlooked the packet the police found in my pocket.
Armstrong was in the witness box for hours, and he survived cross-examination surprisingly well. He was about to return to the dock, still with some faint hope of acquittal, when the gentle voice of the judge called him back.
Major Armstrong, why did you go to the trouble of making up 20 little packets of arsenic, 1 for each dandelion, instead of taking the 1 ounce packet out into the garden with you and giving each of the dandelions a little from that?
I really don't know, my lad.
Why make up 20 little packets, each a fatal dose to a human being, and put them in your pocket?
At the time, it seemed the most convenient way of doing it. I can't give any other explanation.
Thank you, Major Armstrong. That will be all.
The judge completed his summing up, and the jury of 12 good men and true filed out to consider their verdict. 20 minutes later, they returned and took their places in the jury box, and the clerk of the court called for silence.
Silence in court.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar guilty or not guilty of the willful murder of Catherine Mary Armstrong?
Guilty.
Armstrong was a gentleman by education. He was a popular little fellow who had won the affection of his friends and neighbors. And yet there he stood at the bar of judgment, convicted of slowly poisoning the wife who had loved and trusted him. Armstrong had held a commission in the army and had been proud of the uniform he had dishonored. When he was asked whether he had anything to say why he should not be given the judgment to die, he squared his shoulders, took one pace forward like a soldier on a parade ground, and stood upright and rigid. Nothing, he said, in a crisp voice. He heard his sentence, then made a parade ground right turn, brought his heels together with a click, and marched off, left foot first, looking straight ahead to the steps leading to the cells. No object would have been served by charging Armstrong with more than one murder, but if it had been necessary, it's probable that proof could have been obtained that he poisoned at least 3 other people before he murdered his wife. His murders were cowardly, and yet he died like a brave man. He was executed at Gloucester Prison, and those who were with him to the end had to admire his calm fortitude.